What's happening, folks? Back with another reaction and back with some more Leonard Cohen as we continue through his 1992 album, The Future. Thank you again to Yvonne. And we are jumping over Anthem because that was the first Leonard Cohen reaction I did back as part of the We Save Us playlist. Shout out to Kim. But the next track in the playlist is Democracy. A single word title, those are difficult to interpret in advance or to hypothesize about in advance. The word itself, I would say, is clear enough. Actually, democracy is understood in different ways, in different contexts by different people. It goes back at least to ancient Greece, specifically Athens, though as Carl Sagan once correctly noted, all that brave Athenian talk about democracy only applied to a narrow slice of the civilization, and it existed concurrently with a very large slave population, people who were literally unfree and had no impact whatsoever on the political situation. And even into modern times, democracy can be understood in different ways. It can be little more than a rhetorical device where society itself is actually very restricted and only very powerful people or a narrow slice of the ruling class gets to choose what policy is. Democracy can be direct, it can be representative, it can be a catchphrase that is quite divorced from policies and realities on the ground, and without getting overtly political, I would say it is often paid lip service to, including in the current situation in the country I live in, and ultimately in many others as well, although it is openly disdained in some quarters. So yeah, it's ultimately a complicated word and concept that has a very long history and a very checkered reality. In any case, let's see what Leonard has to say about it. This is Leonard Cohen, the track is Democracy, and it's from his 1992 album, The Future. Where's my fight? Oh.
It's coming through a hole in the air from those nads in Tiananmen Square. It's coming from the feel that this ain't exactly real, or it's real but it ain't exactly there. From the war against disorder, from the sirens night and day, from the fires of the homeless, from the ashes of the gay. Democracy is coming to the USA. It's coming through a crack in the wall, on a visionary flood of alcohol, from the staggering account of the Sermon on the Mount, which I don't pretend to understand at all. It's coming from the silence on the dock of the bay, from the brave, the bold, the battered heart of Chevrolet. Democracy is coming to the USA. It's come from the sorrow in the street, the holy places where the races meet, from the homicidal bitching that goes down in every kitchen to determine who will serve and who will eat, from the wells of disappointment where the women kneel to pray for the grace of God in the desert here and the desert far away. Democracy is coming to the USA. imperial, mysterious, in amorous array. Democracy is coming to the USA.
I mean, right away, you get a sense that it's likely going to relate to the US just because that marching drum rhythm, it's very like, the, classic notion of the Revolutionary War and the idea of, the US comparatively being a bastion of democracy and so on, which as a historian and a historian who has focused on early US history and North American history from the 18th century into the early 19th century, there is a degree of truth in that. Now, it was selectively applied, ironic, and untrue at the same time from the very beginning, meaning as revolutionary as it may have been relative to other, constitutional or just absolute monarchies in other parts of the world, and in contrast to, totalitarian authoritarian states, even if there's a degree of truth in that, it was a democratic republic for a very small set of people, meaning for landed white men, which is to say the United States, yes, it was a democratic republic, but the only people who could vote were land-holding white / Western European men of property. So women didn't vote, indigenous Americans didn't vote, black Americans or people taken from Africa, they didn't vote, and white men who didn't have property on, sort of the lower economic classes, they didn't vote. So, the setting for the tune became clear pretty quickly. And then it's talking about how democracy is coming to America, to the U.S., and then it's like, okay, so this is written in the early 90s, and so, the idea that, actually, it's, the people who fought for democracy, and many of whom were killed in Tiananmen Square, which at this point is only a few years in the rear view window, and the idea that it's coming from the women who, what was it, up on the hill of disappointment or something, the idea of, glass ceilings, or, they had to fight for suffrage, for the very right to vote, and for, their interests being represented on a national level is, a struggle that to this very day continues and is ongoing. And so, more than 30 years ago, was already like an earlier stage in that process. But yeah, so the idea that like despite the rhetoric, despite the idealized, romanticized notion of, American democracy and the US as a bastion of representative republic or democratic republic in the world, it was always a bit ironic, even if it was in some sense true. But the idea that like real democracy, genuine democracy, direct democracy, that's actually coming from other places or from corners where the underrepresented are actually the carriers of that. I think that's some of what's happening. It does seem like also he's highlighting inequalities and hypocrisies and ironies as it relates to democracy here in the US, and maybe again as a larger concept at the same time. So yeah, like it feels like there's a critique here, and yet he's overtly saying like, look, I'm not left or right. I'm just here pointing these things out. So he's, if not saying it's in a political critique, it's at the very least a non-partisan critique. So yeah, maybe not apolitical per se, but he's not presenting as like, look, I'm coming from a very specific political angle here, and this is my tribe and I'm against the other tribe because the other tribe is the one that is the source of all these hypocrisies or insufficiencies of democracy. So yeah, it's like he's presenting himself as like kind of an everyman, but also saying that like, these are critiques that I think are applicable without necessarily bringing political party affiliation and so on into it. So yeah, it's a song that I have to hear and digest some more, but I do think there's a lot of wisdom in there and a cleverness to the critiques, and also an indication of the different struggles of different peoples, not just here, but again, referencing Tiananmen Square, where democracy activists were, for a brief moment in time, like representing a possibility of change within the People's Republic of China, and resisting the most authoritarian and repressive aspects of the Communist Party of the People's Republic of China. And many of them again were massacred by state security forces, and sort of that moment in time, it was brief, it was ephemeral, and it gained more attention outside of China, and even to this day it's not something that state authorities are keen for anyone to talk about in China. So yeah, the idea of democracy being an ideal that is pursued but not often attained is certainly not exclusively American. I will say, like the sonics, I'm noticing the organ throughout the track, like just this kind of church style organ. I don't know, like at first I was like, is it a harmonica? Like there was that lead melodic instrument, and I don't actually know what it was. A harmonica is my best guess, but I don't actually think it was that. In any case, definitely this kind of like shuffling energy to a lot of the track, and the percussion scheme was moving. It's not terribly fast, it's not like particularly smashing or heavy, but the tune was more than just ambient. It had a rhythm to it that had some energy. And of course Cohen's voice, and now I'm very familiar with it, but it still just has this power and resonance to it, and it's just a very unique voice. So that is kind of the center of the song. And yes, ultimately, it felt longer, but not crazy long. I'm going to say like 6 or 7 minutes. Yeah, just over 7. So, certainly not a short tune, but those 7 minutes, they went by without feeling like it was like, man, how long is this? So, yeah, definitely another compelling tune, one that I need to try to keep unpacking. I look forward to any insights and thoughts people have about the lyrics. But yes, definitely a tune with a lot going on in it sonically and lyrically. So let me know what you think, and I will see you next time. Peace.